The living room was supposed to feel warm, fairy lights glowing softly, expensive scented candles burning, and upbeat music humming beneath the chatter. If this story touched your heart, I make stories like this every week. Subscribe, I would love to have you with me. But to Ethan Cole, standing near the edge of the room, the air felt cold and razor-sharp. Midnight had passed, and the wine game night had turned into something darker. Madison, sitting confidently on the couch with a wine bottle beside her, laughed louder than everyone, her cheeks flushed with arrogance rather than alcohol. When the game asked her to confess a wild secret, she didn't hesitate. She leaned forward and revealed casually that she had been cheating on Ethan with her gym trainer for months. She didn't sound ashamed. She didn't sound guilty. She sounded proud, like it was something to brag about. Ethan's world froze in place as the room erupted in gasps, laughter, and instead of shock or remorse, Madison's friends turned the moment into entertainment. They leaned forward eagerly, clapping and laughing, treating Ethan's heartbreak like comedy. One woman smirked, calling him soft, while another giggled and whispered loudly enough for him to hear, "That man will never leave. He's too weak to walk away." Madison's eyes glowed with cruel dominance as she lifted her wine glass and repeated mockingly, "Yes, I cheated. What is he gonna do? Leave? He can't. He's too soft." Her friends burst into even louder laughter, high-fiving her like she had won some kind of competition. Ethan stood there surrounded by noise, but inside, he heard nothing but his heartbeat pounding in his ears. The humiliation wasn't accidental. It was public. Planned. Like his pain made the night more fun for them. Every laugh felt like a knife-d excitement over her juicy confession. Ethan didn't scream or throw anything. He didn't defend himself. He didn't even blink when Madison smirked in victory, knowing she had publicly broken him and expected him to accept it, like always. His silence wasn't weakness now, it was transformation. His hands, hidden near the table, shook uncontrollably, gripping a half-finished glass of wine. Every memory of loyalty, sacrifice, late-night work, anniversaries, and forgiveness flashed before him, and all of it was treated like trash in one night of alcohol and cruelty. The camera would linger on his trembling fingers, clenched jaw, and empty eyes. Then, slowly, his lips moved, not loud enough for anyone to hear, but strong enough to change everything. "I can't live like this," he whispered to himself, as if finally admitting a truth he had been denying for years. Not anymore. And in that quiet moment, something inside him broke. The beginning of their marriage felt like a fairy tale built on teamwork, youth, and belief in each other. Ethan and Madison were inseparable, college sweethearts who turned their tiny apartment into a world full of plans and promises. They used to cook together on the floor when the dining table hadn't arrived yet, laughing when recipes went wrong. They would stay up late imagining their future, a beautiful home, successful careers, and children someday. Ethan admired Madison's drive, and she adored his kindness. Back then, it made her feel safe rather than bored. They lived on love, not money, and each accomplishment, a new job, a small raise, a paid bill, was celebrated like a victory. Their wedding albums, framed photos, and saved love notes still sit somewhere in the house, but now they feel like relics from a world that died slowly, day by day. Without them realizing, everything changed when Madison received her corporate promotion. The moment her salary doubled, her confidence turned into superiority. Suddenly, her wardrobe changed, her social circle changed, and her priorities changed. Her phone became her real world: selfies, gym videos, networking socialites, curated perfection. Validation became oxygen. She started chasing attention online and offline, expensive restaurants, luxury trips, and office parties where she liked being admired. Ethan, with his remote IT job, became the quiet presence in the background. His work helped support the house, but her salary helped her ego. She started seeing herself as the successful one and Ethan as the lucky one. Slowly, affection turned into competition, and competition turned into dominance. At home, she became the storm, short-tempered, commanding, emotionally aggressive. Everything revolved around status, appearance, and control. Madison didn't want a husband anymore. She wanted an accessory that made her look powerful. To everyone outside, they were the perfect modern couple: beautiful home, luxury cars, vacations, smiles for Instagram. Friends envied their lifestyle, family praised their success. No one knew that Ethan spent nights alone in the guest room listening to his wife insult him through walls. No one saw him staying up late fixing the house, doing laundry, cooking dinner, and pretending he wasn't hurting when she bragged about living a high-value life. He stayed because he still believed that love means patience, that people grow, that marriage is worth fighting for. But each insult chipped away at him until he began questioning his identity. Was being gentle something to be proud of, or did it make him weak? He feared divorce, losing the home he built, the financial ruin she constantly reminded him of, and the shame society would throw at a man who couldn't control his wife. His love kept him there, but so did fear. A week passed after the wine night humiliation, and Ethan tried to pretend life was normal, forcing himself into silence just to survive. One late evening, while heading upstairs with a basket of laundry, he paused outside the bedroom door after hearing Madison's voice, low, flirtatious, and careless. She was on the phone with her lover. At first, Ethan froze with the same heartbreak he'd felt before, but then her tone sharpened, dripping with pride and cruelty. "Even if he leaves, I'll still win," she whispered with a laugh. "The house is in my name. My lawyer will destroy him." Her confidence wasn't just infidelity, it was a strategy. She didn't fear losing her husband, she wanted to crush him. The betrayal hurt, but the malice behind it stole Ethan's breath. That call wasn't an affair. It was a declaration of war, and she believed he was already defeated. After Madison fell asleep, Ethan sat alone in the quiet living room scrolling through her phone messages on the synced family tablet, messages she didn't even bother to delete. Pictures. Audio notes. Planning hotel nights while telling Ethan she had late meetings. Complaining about him to her lover. Mocking his patience. Worst of all were the screenshots of her conversations with friends. She knew he would see the signs eventually. She wanted him to. She joked about training him to stay no matter what. The realization wasn't just painful, it was humiliating on a level no apology could ever fix. She didn't simply betray him physically, she betrayed him psychologically, emotionally, intentionally. Madison didn't hide anything because she didn't think he'd ever fight back. To her, he wasn't a husband, he was a helpless bystander in his own marriage. And that belief is what finally woke something inside him. Ethan didn't throw the tablet. He didn't storm upstairs or cry into a pillow. Instead, he sat perfectly still, and for the first time in months, the shaking stopped. One by one, he began saving screenshots, emails, messages, call logs, bank statements. Not revenge, preparation. Not rage, clarity. The next morning, while Madison bragged over breakfast about a coworker's failed marriage, Ethan calmly texted a private divorce attorney whose website promised anonymity and strategy. He scheduled a meeting during his lunch break, claiming it was a team call. He started backing up financial documents, collecting proof of infidelity, and making copies of their prenup. Madison still laughed, still posted selfies, still believed he would never leave. But the audience now sees the truth. Ethan wasn't soft, he was quiet. And quiet men are the ones people never see coming. Patience, once his prison, was becoming his weapon. In the weeks that followed, Ethan became a master of silence. Every insult, every eye roll, every rejection, he let them slide off him like water. Madison thought she had finally broken him. What she didn't know was that while she laughed at his pain, he was recording the conversations where she called him names, bragged about her affair, and openly admitted to cheating. He captured screenshots, bank transfers, hotel reservations, every thread of betrayal preserved. On the financial side, he quietly moved portions of his freelance IT income into a separate secured account that she couldn't access. Every night he sat at his laptop while she was getting ready for another night out, collecting documents and building his case piece by piece. Madison saw a defeated husband slumped on the couch. But in reality, Ethan was transforming into a strategist. A quiet storm preparing to strike at Madison's behavior escalated, fueled by the belief that Ethan had no strength left to resist. She stayed out later than ever, sometimes returning home smelling like expensive cologne that wasn't hers. She pushed insults like knives, calling him pathetic, saying he looked like a beta man who couldn't keep a woman. When friends came over, they joined in, joking that Ethan must enjoy being disrespected because he never fights back. In front of others, Madison bragged about her independence and superiority like a trophy, hinting loudly that men who stay despite betrayal must be desperate. Ethan absorbed every word without blinking. The public humiliation hurt deeply, but it also served a purpose. Every comment, every laugh, every mocking remark was recorded and stored safely. They weren't destroying him. They were building the case that would destroy her. The audience sees his stillness for what it truly is. Controlled power. The right moment. As the final phase of his exit unfolded, Ethan secured an apartment lease under his name, paid in advance. He rented a storage unit where he stored his belongings, tech equipment, personal files, clothes, memories he wanted to protect. He transferred ownership of the technological assets he built, software, domains, client contracts, to his new business account. Every step was silent, precise, and legal. The night before the turning point, Madison gathered friends again and used Ethan as entertainment. She laughed loudly and raised her glass. "He won't ever leave. He needs me more than I need him." The room laughed on cue, except Ethan. He didn't flinch, he didn't defend himself. He simply smiled, not a broken smile, not a weak smile, but the smile of a man who is already gone inside. The audience feels the shift instantly. This isn't defeat. This is the moment before the storm. Morning sunlight spilled into the kitchen, bright and peaceful, the complete opposite of the storm that lived between Ethan and Madison for months. Ethan stood there alone, no shaking hands, no fear in his eyes anymore. On the counter lay a stack of perfectly prepared divorce papers and, beside them, a handwritten note in calm, steady penmanship. "You were right, I was soft. But I finally realized kindness isn't weakness. Goodbye." He didn't wait for confrontation, discussion, or theatrics. He didn't pack dramatically or slam doors. He simply picked up his keys, walked out, and closed the door gently behind him, ending a marriage not with rage, but with clarity. That quiet exit hit harder than any fight ever could. There was no chaos, no last-minute plea, no argument, just the calm departure of a man who learned his worth. The silence he left behind was louder than any scream. At first, Madison didn't understand what happened. She thought it was a joke, a dramatic display meant to get attention. But when Ethan didn't answer her calls, and didn't come home, something cracked. The woman who once bragged about dominance was suddenly shaking. She drove to his workplace, planning to make a scene, only to be told by HR that he hadn't worked there in months. Confusion turned into panic as she learned Ethan had built his own tech business behind the scenes, quietly, privately, successfully. She called her lawyer, demanding emergency motions to freeze his assets, only to hear the one sentence she never expected: "None of his accounts are tied to you." Her power, the power she used to control, manipulate, and humiliate, vanished in an instant. She wasn't losing a marriage. She was losing control. And for a woman whose entire identity depended on superiority, that was the real devastation. Madison finally tracked Ethan down outside his new tech office, modern glass building, his logo printed proudly on the entrance. She stormed toward him in a hurricane of emotions, first rage, then desperation, then tears, then promises, then threats. She tried everything, apologizing, blaming him, blaming the affair partner, swearing she could change, swearing she needed him. The world watched a woman who once mocked weakness completely collapse under the weight of her own consequences. Ethan listened quietly, not coldly, just detached. When she sobbed, "Why are you leaving me? I cheated, fine, but why would you throw everything away?" He looked directly into her eyes and delivered the line that broke the audience: "You didn't lose me because you cheated. You lost me because you enjoyed hurting me." Then he turned, walked into his building, and the glass door closed behind him in slow motion, leaving her outside, powerless, finally facing life without control. Ethan's new life didn't transform overnight, but for the first time in years, he woke up without tension sitting on his chest. His tech business, once a quiet side dream, began expanding rapidly. Clients praised his calm leadership and reliability, and soon he hired his first team, people who worked with respect, not ego. His office didn't feel like a battlefield, it felt like a space where ideas were safe and creativity was encouraged. Ethan found himself laughing again, going out for coffee with colleagues, accepting invitations, forming friendships that didn't involve judgment or power games. The simple things, cooking dinner for himself, decorating his apartment, buying new clothes, taking walks without being criticized, became small victories. He wasn't just recovering, he was discovering who he had always been beneath the emotional scars. And for the first time in a long time, his reflection looked happy, not perfect, not healed completely. While Ethan rebuilt his life piece by piece, Madison's world began to crumble. Without Ethan absorbing her emotional chaos, her polished image started cracking. Her lover left her once her life stopped feeling glamorous. At work, her performance dropped, she snapped at coworkers, missed deadlines, and her reputation, once pristine, began dissolving. For the first time, people saw her insecurity instead of her confidence. Nights that used to be filled with endless parties became nights of staring at her phone, waiting for a reply that never came. She reread the divorce note countless times, trying to understand how the man she once mocked ended up being the one who walked away. Eventually the messages started, long texts, apologizing, explaining, begging, remembering the early love they shared. But Ethan never answered. It wasn't cruelty. It was acceptance. He no longer needed her validation, and that was something she couldn't control. Why? But 3 months later, Ethan sat on the balcony of his apartment watching a quiet sunset, not thinking about Madison, not thinking about pain, just existing in peace. People sometimes asked him, "Don't you ever want revenge?" He would simply shake his head. Leaving wasn't about winning. Leaving was about choosing himself. He no longer checked for her messages, he no longer wondered whether she changed. He didn't feel hate, only distance. Healing didn't erase what happened, but it allowed him to move forward without dragging the past behind him. Ethan finally understood that staying in a relationship that destroys you isn't loyalty, it's self-abandonment. The greatest victory wasn't proving Madison wrong. The greatest victory was remembering his worth. The story doesn't end with a new lover or a dramatic twist, it ends with something stronger, a man choosing peace over pain. Leaving was not revenge, leaving was survival. 6 months later, Ethan sits alone at an outdoor cafe surrounded by warm sunlight, the sound of soft chatter, and birds fluttering above the veranda. He isn't hiding in the shadows, and nothing about him feels heavy anymore. He looks relaxed, confident, and effortlessly at peace. When a young waitress walks by, her hands tremble and she accidentally knocks over his drink, spilling the coffee across the table. She panics immediately, apologizing repeatedly with a cracked voice, worried she ruined a customer's morning. But Ethan doesn't react with annoyance or bitterness. Instead, he smiles, not the forced smile he used to wear during the worst days of his life, but a genuine one. He laughs softly and tells her, "It's okay. Accidents happen. Don't worry." In that small moment, the world can see that Ethan's kindness never disappeared, it simply found the right place to exist again. As the waitress walks away with relief in her eyes, Ethan watches her go with a gentle appreciation for life's imperfections. He realizes how far he has come. There was a time when the smallest accident would have crushed him, not because he was angry, but because he was emotionally exhausted and constantly walking on eggshells. Today, he doesn't guard his heart with walls, nor does he give it away to be mistreated. He has learned balance, peace, and self-respect. The world around him moves with an easy rhythm, and he no longer feels like a man drowning. His laughter isn't rare anymore. It isn't something Madison could take away, it was just something he hadn't given to himself for a long time. What he shows in this moment is powerful. Real healing isn't about becoming colder, it's about becoming softer without fear. Ethan picks up his phone, not out of loneliness, but out of gratitude for the journey he survived. The screen lights up, showing a quote he saved months ago. The quote that became his compass when everything felt unbearable: "You are not hard when you stop loving others. You are strong when you start loving yourself." He reads it quietly, not with pain, but with a calm certainty. The camera slowly pulls back, revealing Ethan sitting in the golden glow of the afternoon, healed, free, and whole, surrounded by life he once believed he had lost forever. Nothing dramatic happens, no tears, no dramatic monologue, just a man who finally made peace with himself. The scene fades to black, leaving the audience with a silent but powerful truth: sometimes the happiest ending isn't falling in love again, it's learning to live again.